Good morning, good morning. I thought about this being Father's Day as I was out on my 5 mile run this morning. Well, actually, it was a 1 mile walk, but a 5 mile run sounds so much cooler. Well, at least in my head, it does. And I thought I'd come while having my cup of coffee, share a Daddy Day message. So I want to say Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, the biological dads, the intentional and accidental dads, those who are extended dads by choice, and even absentee dads, because every new day presents a new opportunity to reconnect and strengthen that relationship. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this holiday initially was intended to honor the parental bonds of fatherhood, as well as the influence of fathers in our society. There's a quote that says, "A good father is one of the most underappreciated, unnoticed, unsung, yet one of the most valuable assets in our society." And fathers, just like moms, are incredibly important to the development of a child's emotional well-being. Studies have shown when fathers are affectionate and supportive, it greatly affects the child's cognitive and social development. And it also instills an overall sense of comfort, security, and self-confidence. Full disclosure, folks, looking back at becoming a young father myself, hindsight is 2020. I can see very clearly all the missteps and mistakes made in my attempts at doing the daddy thing. I stumbled considerably at being an ideal example or role model of what children can aspire to become as adults. But despite my shortcomings and imperfection, love between us was never in question. And today, being older and wiser, being older anyway, being wiser is up for debate, and we won't get into that. I must confess that I'm closer to forgiving myself as I've grown into an understanding and acceptance that I did the best I knew how at the time. And finally realizing that perfection was never a requirement. And I like to take this occasion for a reflective memorial to my dad, my hero, my Superman, my Mr. He can do it all guy. And after all these years, I still really, really miss him dearly. My dad was a big, strong man, 6'4", 275 plus pounds, and he had a loud voice, which I guess runs in the family apparently. And he had this robust laugh that would just light up a room. He was a good man. He was a kind man, and he was easygoing. And he was a tireless worker, which I think came from his impoverished childhood and him coming from a broken family. He believed in working hard for what you wanted. But his most outstanding trait was his love for family. His love for family was true, it was consistent, it was solid, and it didn't waver. And when I say love for family, he considered family the entire village, because that's the kind of person he was. And our parents provided us a really good life, but make no mistake, Mom was the boss of the house. Mom ran that show, and that was without compromise. But their relationship wasn't emasculating to my dad. Because you see, my dad worked hard and provided the roof over our head. But it was Mom who took care of everything and everybody under that roof. And what happens in those defining moments when you get blindsided by life? And I won't get into the nuances and details of my disobedience as a child, because I was still so stinking sweet and cute and just a little bit mischievous. And it was my youthful carelessness with gasoline that caused a house fire and burn injuries. And it drastically changed what we knew as everyday normal. But despite my physical injuries, the extensive hospital stay, and the painful treatments, what was most hurtful was my mistaken belief that my dad was upset and disappointed in me. See, I misinterpreted a lot of indicators, like his limited hospital visits and his uncharacteristic melancholy. And Dad wasn't laughing anymore. He wasn't laughing anymore. But let me tell you about Dad's tears. Late one night, I headed to the kitchen for a drink of water. And I was mindful to be quiet as not to wake up my sleeping family. And coming down the stairs, the midnight silence was broken by the sound of my dad talking on the telephone. What I assumed was the telephone conversation. He wasn't aware of me lurking about in the darkness, but from my partial view from the staircase, I could see my father down on his knees with tears streaming down his face. And it was that unpretty cry with the snot and the panting and the hard breathing. Yeah, he was crying, but he was crying out to God in prayer that grace and mercy would endure over our family during this unsettling time. But what was interesting is the prayers were not for himself. His prayers were that his wife maintain the strength and wisdom to continue being an effective caregiver and advocate for her son, that healing prayers for the emotional and psychological damage to his other children have a minimal long-term after effect, and prayers that he could hold the family together and maintain some sense of normalcy despite the devastation of fire and trauma. And I secretly, and just as quietly, went back upstairs, and I got into my bed with my head and heart swirling with mixed emotions about what I had just witnessed. It was disturbing to me seeing this big mountain of a man down on his knees, vulnerable. So I'd never seen my dad cry before. Sure, I've heard plenty of colorful profanity from him, but I'd never heard him cry before. And I was also confused because I found myself feeling a peculiar sense of joy because I now realized that my father wasn't angry with me, nor disappointed. He was doing the best he could under most extreme circumstances. See, my dad had become Mr. Mom in maintaining the home front, which allowed my mother to totally focus on my care and recovery. And that's why his hospital visits were limited. And rare was the sound of his big boisterous laughter. But I guess there's not much to laugh about when a child is injured, hurt, in pain, or distressed. And though we can't always be prepared for what life experiences we may be gifted with, I gotta say that my mom and dad did an amazing job navigating our family through stormy seas back to safe harbor. And never, ever have I seen my father stand taller than when he was on his knees in prayer, nor seen him stronger than that intimate moment of vulnerability holding on to his faith. You see, there's a long-standing myth that parents' most important job is to keep their children safe. But truth is parents' most important job is to love their children. And I believe that God gives us the greatest example of a father's love. It's sacrificial, it's patient, kind, tolerant, understanding, compassionate, humble, honest, giving and forgiving, faithful, selfless, etc., etc., etc. Love is constant and unchanging. And I know Father's Day may not be the big deal holiday like Mother's Day, but it's so much more than just a greeting card or a buy one, get one t-shirt. Another quote I'd like to share is, becoming a father is one thing. Being a dad is many, many things. So salutations to Dad today. And let's include grandfathers too, because now I count myself among those numbers. Salutations to biological fathers, intentional and accidental fathers, to single fathers, to those extended fathers by choice. Thank you for giving your best in the joys and heartaches, in the successes and the failures. And I like to extend blessings to the generations of families. And remember that the privilege of fatherhood comes with great responsibility and with gratitude for all of our human imperfections. So now I think it's time for me to get my second cup of coffee. And I'd like to leave you with, let's lean into hope with the faith that guides toward love. Happy Father's Day.